I've watched a lot of sports drama over the years, but this is different. When Jason Whitlock said the WNBA hates Caitlin Clark, that they're brutalizing her, he didn't hold back. He called it what it really is: jealousy, resentment, and failure at the highest level. And honestly, he's not wrong. This league had a chance to protect their biggest star, to rally around her rise and build something bigger. Instead, they let her get beat up, physically, emotionally, and publicly, while sitting back like it was all part of the game. Caitlin Clark released a statement yesterday, as well as the Indiana Fever, about the end of her season. Let's hear from Caitlin Clark. She got injured some point in July, hasn't played for 2 months. So today I'm breaking it all down. Why Whitlock is absolutely right. Why Caitlin's treatment has crossed the line. And how the WNBA might have just fumbled the future of its own league. When I first heard Jason Whitlock say, "This is the biggest fumble in the history of sports," I didn't think much of it, but then I sat with it, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized he's right. This wasn't just a missed opportunity, this was a total collapse of leadership. When you talk about some of the biggest fumbles in the history of sports, what transpired this year in the WNBA and with Caitlin Clark is the biggest fumble in the history of sports. Women have been fighting for 60 years. We want a place in sports. We want to be the biggest stars in sports. Caitlin Clark wasn't just another draft pick. She was a once-in-a-generation media draw. She carried women's college basketball to a new level, brought in new fans, new revenue, and new energy. When she arrived in the WNBA, the whole world watched. But what did the league do with that spotlight? They let it turn toxic. Instead of protecting her, they left her open to attacks. Instead of guiding her, they watched her get isolated. And instead of lifting her up, they acted like she needed to be humbled. Whitlock didn't say anything radical. He just said the part everyone else is afraid to admit. And that's why it hit so hard. Because the truth is, Caitlin Clark has been carrying this league on her back since day one. She didn't ask for the attention, it followed her. And rather than celebrate her, the league let a bitter undercurrent take over. That bitterness has turned into cheap shots, social jabs, and an ugly atmosphere where the biggest star is the biggest target. Whitlock saw it. So did we. Let's be honest. Caitlin Clark didn't walk into the WNBA quietly. She walked in as a tidal wave. Her name alone turned regular season games into primetime events. She shattered ratings, brought millions of new eyes to the league, and made the Indiana Fever one of the most talked about teams in all of basketball. But with all that success came resistance. Because the system she entered wasn't built to handle someone like Caitlin. A rookie that instantly became the face of the league. A player whose college following eclipsed some of the biggest names in the WNBA. That doesn't happen without shaking some foundations. And shake them she did. What's been happening ever since has nothing to do with basketball and everything to do with ego. Veteran players began sending subtle messages. "We've been grinding for years. She hasn't earned it yet." Some said she was overhyped. Others said the league should treat everyone equally. On paper, those sound like fair arguments. But in context, they read like coded pushback. Because let's face it, Caitlin Clark's fame didn't come from the WNBA system. It came in spite of it. She didn't need league approval to become a star, and that's where the problem starts. This league was not prepared for a player to bring more attention than the league itself. I spent hours in the gym every day with the singular goal of getting back out there. Disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how I am feeling. I want to thank everyone who had my back through all the uncertainty. This has been incredibly frustrating, but even in the bad, there is good. The way the fans continue to show up for me and for the Fever brought me so much joy and important perspective. And instead of embracing her, they resisted her. You see it in the way she's officiated. You see it in the way her injuries are handled. You see it in the silence when she gets targeted on the court. It's not just neglect, it's rejection. A passive-aggressive attempt to remind her she's not above the game. But here's the truth, she's not above the game, but she's beyond the system, and that's exactly why Whitlock said what he said. Because the system didn't evolve to meet the moment, it froze, it rejected the wave, and in doing so, it started pushing away the very thing that was saving it. Caitlin Clark broke the system, and instead of adapting, the system turned on her. Let me say this plainly. What Caitlin Clark experienced on the court this season wasn't just physical basketball. It was targeted, calculated aggression. And the worst part, the WNBA let it happen. Now look, I'm not naive. Basketball is a contact sport. Every player takes hits. But what Caitlin endured, it went far beyond the usual wear and tear. From elbows to the ribs, to being hip-checked without calls, to hard fouls that looked more like messages than defense. It was clear. Players weren't just trying to stop her. They were trying to send a message. And let's not act like this was subtle. It was right there on camera. Over and over. And yet, where was the league? Where were the flagrant calls? Where were the fines? Where were the statements about protecting the face of the league? There were none. Crickets. Jason Whitlock wasn't exaggerating when he said Caitlin was being brutalized, because that's what it looked like, on national TV no less. And every time it happened and the league did nothing, they sent a signal, not just to Caitlin, but to the fans. This is the new norm. Think about that. The league's biggest star, their most marketable name, the reason millions were tuning in, getting beat down and ignored. If this were the NBA and it was LeBron or Steph in their rookie year getting targeted like that, there would have been league-wide suspensions. Coaches would be fined. The commissioner would be in front of cameras the next morning. But Caitlin, she was left alone. Why? Because they were too scared to call it what it was, resentment. Players weren't just playing physical, they were playing bitter, because she had the spotlight they never got. And instead of leadership stepping in to cool it down, they let it build. They let it fester. And that's why it escalated. That's why the hits got hotter. That's why the tension got thicker. Because when players see that the league won't protect someone, they take the green light and run with it. This isn't just a missed call issue, it's a culture issue, a leadership issue, an identity crisis. They're all hot garbage. They're all unlikable. Holy cow. This is what bothers me about Caitlin Clark, is I've had to sit through and watch these clowns, these angry, entitled, pay us what you owe us, alphabet mafia women. Caitlin didn't come in asking for special treatment. She came to play. But she ended up being the lightning rod for everything the league never resolved. Its insecurities, its politics, its fractured identity. They didn't just fail to protect her. They let her become the scapegoat for everything they were too scared to fix. Let's talk about what's not being said, because sometimes silence speaks louder than any statement. And right now, the WNBA's silence around the Caitlin Clark situation, it's screaming. This league is at a crossroads. On one hand, they've never had this much attention. Caitlin Clark has done for the WNBA in one season what decades of PR couldn't. She made it mainstream. People who never watched a game are now tuning in. Merchandise sales are up. Ticket sales are up. Ratings, record-breaking. But here's the problem. With all that visibility comes scrutiny. And what fans are seeing isn't a league celebrating its star, it's a league tolerating her. Barely. Every time Caitlin gets fouled hard and no one says a word, it chips away at the league's image. Every time a player throws shade in a press conference and it goes unchecked, it adds to the narrative. And every time the WNBA leans on her name for promotion, only to turn its back when she needs support, it confirms what Whitlock said. This isn't protection, it's exploitation. The silence from the league office, from executives, from veteran ambassadors, it's not just disappointing, it's dangerous, because perception is reality. And right now the reality is this. The WNBA looks like a league where its most valuable player can be battered on national TV, disrespected by peers and ignored by leadership. And fans are noticing. Go online, scroll through the comment sections. People are turning on the league, not because of the physicality, but because of the double standards, because of the hypocrisy, because of the empty empowerment slogans that don't match the on-court reality. How can a league say we support women while letting one of its own get targeted week after week? How can you champion growth, yet punish the player responsible for it with silence and indifference? This isn't just about Caitlin Clark anymore, it's about every rising star watching this unfold and wondering, will they protect me, or will I be next? The WNBA has a branding crisis on its hands. If they don't course correct fast, they risk alienating not just Clark, but an entire generation of fans and future athletes. Because no one wants to join a league where your success makes you a target, and your injury makes you invisible. The silence isn't neutral, it's complicit. And the longer they stay quiet, the louder the criticism gets. The more justified voices like Jason Whitlock's become. And the closer we get to the league losing something they may never get back. Credibility. Let me speak plainly now, not as a commentator, not as a fan of Caitlin Clark, but as someone who actually cares about the future of this league. Because what we're witnessing isn't just about one player being mistreated. It's about a league failing to protect the very thing it claimed it wanted. Attention, relevance, growth. Caitlin Clark delivered all of that. She didn't walk in with a marketing team behind her. She walked in with results, with talent, with influence. She gave the WNBA a boost that no PR agency could have paid for. And instead of nurturing that, instead of embracing the shift, they rejected it. They made her prove herself over and over again, even as the numbers spoke for themselves. And here's what frustrates me the most. They had a golden opportunity, a rising star, a massive fan base, a renewed spotlight. All they had to do was lead with unity, support her, let her elevate the league with everyone else, not at the expense of anyone else. But they didn't. They let her get brutalized. They let her become the villain in her own league. They let petty politics and locker room jealousy shape the culture instead of leadership. And if that's not a wake-up call, then maybe the WNBA doesn't deserve her. Because Caitlin Clark isn't going to beg for acceptance. She doesn't have to. She is the product. And if the league doesn't protect her, someone else will. A rival league. A global platform. A brand that understands value when they see it. If I'm in charge of the WNBA, I stop everything right now. I call a meeting, I call out the culture, I set the standard, and I lead. Because if you don't lead through moments like this, you're not a league. You're just noise. So here's my honest take. Jason Whitlock wasn't exaggerating, he was early. And unless the WNBA changes fast, his words won't just be commentary, they'll be reality. Now I want to hear what you think. Did the WNBA allow jealousy and resentment to ruin a golden opportunity? Is Caitlin Clark being unfairly targeted? Or is this just tough love from a league not ready to share the spotlight? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading all of them, and if you want more unfiltered, real breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button. Because this story, it's not over, not even close.